controlled by ciliary body muscles. Okay, so this is about elements of visual perception. So in today's class, we are going to discuss about three important terminologies. First, brightness adoption and discrimination, and we have the second one, which is called as Weber's ratio, and after that we have one more topic called simultaneous contrast. We'll discuss these three topics, and again these three topics they are related to visual perception of the human beings. Okay, okay. First, we have brightness adoption. It is also called as subjective brightness. So usually, the human eye it can discriminate some of the intensities. Okay, you'll be having large range of intensities, of course, but however, human eye it is limited. It can discriminate or it can identify only few intensities. Okay, but theoretically, you might be having any number of intensities while representing the image. But however, the human eye cannot discriminate or cannot identify all these intensities. Okay. So in generally we can say that for any given conditions, the current sensitivity level of the visual system is called as brightness adoption level. Try to understand. It is the current sensitivity level of the visual system under given conditions. That we call it as brightness adoption level, or it is also referred to as subjective brightness. So experimentally it is observed that the subjective brightness, that is brightness perceived by the human beings, it is a logarithmic function of light incident on the eye. So in the slide I have shown the graph, the curve BA, that is subjective brightness. It indicates adaptive brightness for a particular condition. Okay, just remember brightness adoption means for any given conditions the current sensitivity level of the visual system. Okay, because the discrimination of intensities by the human eye is limited. We cannot identify all the brightness levels or intensity levels. Okay, okay. This is the first term we have. And we have the second term, which is known as Weber's ratio. So actually, Weber's ratio, it is the ratio delta IC by I. The ratio delta IC by I is called as Weber's ratio, where delta IC is known as incremental illumination on the object, and I, capital I, it is called as background illumination. Okay. So you have background illumination along with an incremental illumination, right? The ratio of delta IC by I, it is called as Weber's ratio. The small value of this Weber's ratio indicates good brightness discrimination. Small value of delta IC by I is possible if I is large. If the background illumination is large, that time we can say that we have good brightness discrimination, and large value indicates poor brightness discrimination. Dear students, remember the Weber's ratio can be defined as simply delta IC by I, where delta IC is incremental illumination and I is called as the background illumination. And if this ratio is small, it is an indication of good brightness discrimination. And if this ratio is large for any given condition, it indicates poor brightness discrimination or identification. Then we have the third term in the today's class, which is to be discussed, is simultaneous contrast. So actually, simultaneous contrast, it is the phenomena which indicates that the region's perceived brightness does not depend on its own intensity. Rather, it depends on its background. Try to understand, it is the phenomena which indicates that the perceived brightness of any region does not depend only on its own intensity. It also depends on intensity of the background. Okay, here we have an example in this slide. So if you look at the example, we have totally three pictures. We have set of squares, okay, inner square and the outer square. If you look at the diagram carefully, the inner square, it has same intensity, it has same color or brightness. But what is happening is they appear, the inner square, they appear darker as the background color becomes lighter. Please try to understand. In the example, we can observe that though the intensity of all the inner squares remains same, the inner square, it appears darker as the background color becomes lighter. So this particular phenomena, we call it as simultaneous contrast. Okay. So simultaneous contrast, it is the phenomena which indicates that the perceived brightness of the region does not depend only on its intensity. It also depends on the intensity of the background. Okay. And for this, we have the example. In the example, we have inner squares which have same brightness or same color. But however, the background square, that is the outer square color, is varied. Okay. It appears that the intensity of the inner square is darker as the background color becomes lighter. So this particular phenomena is known as simultaneous contrast. Dear students, please remember these three important parameters. One is brightness adoption and discrimination. It indicates that the human eye's ability to discriminate the different intensities is limited. For any given conditions, the current sensitivity level of the visual system is called as brightness adoption. So it is also called by the name subjective brightness. Okay. And experimentally it is observed that the subjective brightness is a logarithmic function of light incident on the eye. So actually this intensity is measured in terms of lumens. Millilumens you can find on the x-axis. On the y-axis he has shown the subjective brightness in the graph. Okay. The curve BA, it indicates the subjective brightness in the example. And after that, we discussed about Weber's ratio, which is simply delta IC by I, where delta IC is called as incremental illumination, and I is known as background illumination. The small value of Weber's ratio indicates good brightness discrimination, and the large value indicates poor brightness discrimination in the system. Okay. And after that, we discussed about one more concept called simultaneous brightness. Okay. Simultaneous contrast. So actually, it is a phenomena where the perceived brightness of any region does not depend only on its intensity level, rather it also depends on its background. So for that, we have the example in this slide. In the example, the inner squares, they have the same brightness, but however, the outer square, they have different intensities. So we can observe that even though the intensity of all the inner squares remains same, the inner squares, they appear darker as the background color becomes lighter. So this particular phenomena, we call it as simultaneous contrast. Okay, dear students, this completes the first part of the module 1. And we have the second part, or second unit, we can say. It is related with image sensing and acquisition. So in today's class, we are going to start with the second part of module 1, that is image sensing and acquisition. So image sensing, it deals with formation of the image, and acquisition means capturing the image. Okay. So basically, in this part, we are going to discuss about different type of sensors. Then we discuss about a concept called sampling and quantization. And after that, we discuss about how a digital image is represented. Along with that, we discuss about some of the relationship between the pixels. These are some 3 to 4 topics we are going to discuss in second part of this first module. Okay, first topic we have is the different sensors used for sensing of the image. Okay, okay. If you look at this slide, we have totally 3 different type of sensors. We call it as single sensor, single imaging sensor, line sensor, which is also called as strip sensor, and the third one is known as array sensor. Remember, we can make use of 3 different type of sensors to acquire the image in image processing system. First one is called as single sensor. Second one, we call it as strip sensor or line sensor. And we have the third one, which is known as array sensors. So please just observe the slide. First diagram, it shows single sensor. Second diagram, it shows line sensor or strip sensor. And the third diagram, it shows array sensors. We'll discuss these one by one in detail. Okay, first we are going to start with a single sensor. Okay, so if you look at this part, this is the diagram given for single sensor. The very good example for single sensor is a photodiode. Maybe a photodiode or phototransistor, it can be used as single sensor. Okay, if you just look at the characteristics of the photodiode, the electrical characteristics or the current flowing through the diode, it depends on amount of light falling on the photodiode. The electrical current through the diode is going to vary amount of light falling on the diode, photodiode. Okay, this photodiode can be used as a single sensor to capture the image. Okay, so if you look at the diagram, this is the single sensor, so that it consists of some sensing material. Okay, and we require some amount of light or energy which should fall on the diode. Okay, and you might be having some filter to filter the amount of light falling on it. It requires some power. Here he has shown power in, and it requires some package which we can call it as housing for the sensing material. And here we have the output of the sensor. The output of the sensor may be either voltage or it may be a current. So that this electrical signal, output of the sensor, electrical signal, it is going to vary depending on the amount of light falling on the sensing material. Okay, so this particular diagram, it shows about single sensor. Remember, photodiode is one of the good example for single sensor. But however, to capture the image, we require movement of the sensor in both x and y direction. So if you want to capture any image, so usually it will be a rectangular scene. So when you observe any image from your eye, it appears to be as a rectangular scene. To capture this rectangular scene, we require movement of the sensor in both x direction and the y direction. Okay. So to have movement of the sensor in x and y direction to capture entire image, we can use the arrangement shown in the diagram. At the top of this slide, we have shown how to capture entire image by using a single sensor. The arrangement, it consists of a drum on which a film is mounted. So it consists of a drum on which a film is mounted. So that the rotation of the drum, it provides moment of the sensor in one direction. So if you look at the diagram here, you have the sensor which is fixed by using a screw. By using a screw, you can fix up the sensor as shown in the diagram. As shown in the diagram, this is the sensor we have, which is fixed on which is fixed by means of a screw on a strip. Okay, and here we have the film, and this is this entire thing is a drum. Okay, the rotation of this drum, it provides moment of the sensor in one direction, and the horizontal moment of this sensor on this strip, it provides moment in other direction. Okay, on this strip, it will move horizontally, but however, when you rotate the drum, this sensor will move vertically. Okay. The example is, I think you might have observed the typewriting machine, right? Uh, I hope you have seen typewriting machine, which was used in older days. So in the typewriting machine, there exists a head which will move horizontally as you go on typing the characters. Okay. But when you want to move to the next line, what will be the arrangement? Can you think? The arrangement is you have to move the head manually. You have to rotate that drum manually. So same kind of arrangement we can use to capture entire image by using single sensor. Okay. This is how to capture the image by using single sensor. Okay. Dear students, remember single sensor, as the name itself indicates, here we are going to use only one sensor to capture the entire image. Okay. The photodiode is a very good example for single sensor. But however, if you have a single sensor, to capture the image, you require moment of the sensor in both x and y direction. Okay. So to have moment of the sensor in both the direction, we can use arrangement as shown in the diagram. It contains a drum on which the film is mounted. Okay. The rotation of the drum, it provides moment of the sensor in one direction, and the sensor which is fixed on a strip with screw, as the sensor moves horizontally, it provides moment in other direction. Okay. Means while generating the image, the sensor has to move horizontally as well as vertically very fast to capture the entire image. Okay. So this is all about the single sensors. The next we have, which is known as sensor strips, second type of sensors. They are also called as line sensors. So in this case, as the name itself indicates, we are going to use a group of single sensors in the form of linear array. So if you observe the diagram, if you observe this diagram, here we have a set of single sensors which will produce the separate output depending on the energy falling on it. Depending on amount of light falling on these sensors, they are going to produce the different electrical signals. These electrical signal, they are used for formation of the image at the output side. Okay. Now the question is how to capture the entire image by using these sensor strips. Okay. So as a sensor strips, they contain a line of sensors. At a time, they can capture one line. Okay. But to capture the entire image, what we can do is we can use the arrangement which is shown here. Okay. Here, what happens is the moment of the sensor will produce one direction image, and however moment of the sensor, that is moment of this film perpendicular to the sensor, will produce image in other direction. Okay. Very good example is you might have seen Xerox machine. Okay. In the Xerox machine, initially the image is scanned. So there exists a strip which will generate a huge amount of light while scanning the image, right? So that that strip will scan one line at a time, but to scan the entire document, that strip is going to move vertically, right? That will produce the entire image. So same kind of arrangement we can use to capture the image by using sensor strips. And we have third one, we have one more diagram. Here you can observe. So this kind of sensor, it is used to obtain a 3D view of the object. To obtain 3D view of the object, we can use the next kind of sensor which is shown in this slide. Okay. Here what we do is we are going to make use of the X-ray source in the ring configuration. It has a ring configuration. Okay. So it consists of rotating X-ray source. And exactly opposite to this X-ray source, a sensor is fixed. Exactly opposite to the X-ray source, the sensors are going to be fixed. So that whenever you want to obtain image of any object, the X-ray source is made to pass through the object. So when the X-ray source passes through the object, the intensity of this X-ray is going to vary. That variation in intensity is captured by means of the sensors which are fixed exactly opposite to the X-ray source. So that as the X-ray source and the sensor ring, they are mounted in the ring configuration. As they are allowed to rotate, they are going to produce 3D cross-sectional view of the object. Here he has shown how the image is reconstructed by rotation of this sensor and X-ray source in the ring configuration. So actually this type of arrangement we are going to use in the medical field as well as in the industry. One of the example is we can have medical images by means of using this kind of arrangement. Okay, so this kind of sensors we call it as line sensors or sensor strips. The concept is very simple. Here we are going to arrange a group of single sensors in linear fashion. Okay, so that this strip will produce at a time one line of image. But the moment perpendicular the strip, it produces the entire image, right? And we have one more type of sensor which is shown in the diagram, which can be used for the purpose of obtaining cross-sectional view of the object or three-dimensional view of the object. The arrangement is we use a ring configuration in which the X-ray source will be there, and exactly opposite to this X-ray source we are going to fix up the sensor rings. Okay. When the X-ray source passes through the object, the intensity of the X-ray is going to vary. The variation in intensity is captured by means of sensors. As this ring configuration, as it rotates, it will be able to produce a 3D view of the object. The next we have image sensing by using sensor array. So this diagram, which I am showing you by means of pointer, it is called as sensor array. So actually, in this case, we are going to use a large number of sensors which are arranged in the form of matrix fashion. So at a time, you will be able to capture the complete image by using this kind of sensor arrangement. Okay. So this kind of sensor arrangement, it is called as sensor array. By using sensor array, it is possible to capture the entire image at a time. So very good example is in case of digital cameras, we are going to use such kind of sensors. We are going to find a rectangular strip on which the sensors are fixed. maybe say depending on megapixel, we are going to find the number of sensors. Say for example, if you have 4 by 5 matrix, then in that case you are going to find 20 sensors arranged in row and column fashion. But whenever you want to have high megapixel cameras, you require to have a very large number of sensors in row and column fashion. Okay. The next, in the second diagram, if you observe, here I have shown in generally how the image is going to be formed. So that to have any image, dear students, you remember you require illumination source. Here I'm going to show you in this slide. This is illumination source, which is going to provide some light energy. This illumination source may be anything. It may be a simple light, it may be extra source, it may be anything. Okay, any kind of illumination you require as a source. When this illumination source, it falls on the object. Okay, this is the object for which we want to capture the image, right? So when this light or illumination falls on the object either it is going to radiate the energy or it is going to absorb the energy, right? So depending on amount of energy radiated or amount of energy absorbed, we are going to form the image by using imaging system. Okay. So that in the internal plane, we are going to get a kind of image. We are going to get a kind of image depending on the energy radiated or energy absorbed by this particular object when the illumination is falling on the object. Okay, so this is the internal plane we have, and at the output side, by using this internal plane, we are going to form a disguised image. So in the next class, we are going to discuss about how a disguised image is formed. Okay, so to have an image, remember, to have an image of any of the object, we require illumination source, that is light energy we require. Along with that, we require an object. The object must be such that either it should radiate the energy or it should absorb the energy falling on it. So depending on amount of energy radiated by the object, the imaging system is going to produce an internal plane, an internal image. This image required to be converted in the form of digital image by means of additional processing. Okay, that we are going to discuss in the next class.